Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I last did my last day in the life of a dermatology trainee vlog, and I believe the last one, or well, the only one, had quite good reviews, so I thought of sharing with you guys my experience being on call for dermatology over the weekend. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris and I am a dermatology trainee based in the west of Scotland. And on my channel, I share my life experiences working in dermatology, life in the UK in general, and medicine. On call for dermatology in the UK is quite varied from region to region. Some regions might not have an out-of-hours dermatology on call, but other regions like the one that I'm in, we have a 24/7 on call for dermatology. So for those people who are thinking of applying to dermatology but simply don't know what a dermatology trainee does, hopefully this video would shed some light and you find this beneficial. Being on call for dermatology in the west of Scotland, as I've said, is a 24/7 on call, which means we do weekends and nights as well. Luckily for us, dermatology on call is a non-resident on call, which means we don't have to be in a hospital. So for a weekend on call, you start from 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning up to Monday 9 o'clock, so that would give you 48 hours non-resident on call. The referrals we get for dermatology is actually quite varied. Sometimes you hardly get any calls, but other times you might be bombarded with several calls happening at once. You can get called any time of the day, though usually they would call before night times, before 9 o'clock in the evening. You can be referred to any patient, no matter how old, how young they are, from children to the elderly, from various settings, so from GP out of hours to hospital patients who are quite unwell. So you really don't know what you're getting until you hear the story from the referrer. So for this video, I'm going to try my best to film as much as I can whilst being on call to give you a more realistic experience. But as you know, I need to protect patient confidentiality and their privacy, and so I may not be able to film the patients themselves, but I can film perhaps the surroundings, where I work, and the case that I'm presented with. Also, just a quick tip for anyone doing on calls, either for dermatology or any other non-resident on call. Because you can get called at any time of the day when you least expect, I tend to find having a sort of checklist to be quite useful, and actually got the idea from one of my senior colleagues who was doing on call for quite some time. So I've got this paper with me, a crib sheet of some sort, that I always carry, or try to at least. There aren't a lot of dermatological emergencies, so it's easy to just narrow down to a few red flags. So is the patient erythrodermic, which means covering more than 90% of the body surface area? Are there any blisters, erosions, ulcerations, any mucosal site involvement? And that would include the eyes, the mouth, the genitals and nose. And simple observations. Are they stable? Are they unwell? Do they need admission if it's the GP out of hours calling you? And do you need to see them on the day, or can this wait till during the week? And then, of course, think of your differentials. So is it inflammatory? Is it autoimmune? Is this infection, drugs, malignancy, so on and so forth. And also during this weekend, I am preparing for my exam, and so there's quite a lot of things to study. Hopefully you can see what I actually do when I'm on call for dermatology. Enjoy! So now it's lunchtime. I've not really planned ahead in advance or on what I'm going to eat. Getting some of the things that I've got in the kitchen and have a nice meal. Now I'm going to bake some fries or chips with seasoning, and this is a really good brand, McCain. It's not sponsored, but it's really, really nice. I think all you've got to do is just put the seasoning into the chips and put it in the oven, and it's really, really nice. Then I'm also going to have a can of soup. Here we go. This is the already seasoned fries. The oven has been preheated. Perfect. So I've just heated up my food and was about to eat my soup when I got a call from a doctor in the emergency department in one of the hospitals in Glasgow. There was a patient that they have just seen with this widespread blistering rash. They're not sure what it is, so I thought I should go and have a look and check it out. Not sure what exactly it is. It's quite painful. They were thinking of shingles, but they're just not sure. It doesn't look classic of shingles. So I will have a look and I will update you as I go along.
So I managed to see the patient in the emergency department. It took me perhaps half an hour to 40 minutes to drive from my place to the hospital. And then when I came to the department, I had no idea where things were, which is, quite common, especially if you don't work there. It can be a bit, awkward at times, trying to find the people, trying to find the patient. And it turns out that I think the patient might have shingles, which is quite, I guess, a more straightforward diagnosis. And sometimes it can be as straightforward as shingles or a flare of the eczema. Other times it can be more complex. So you never know what you get actually. So the patient received some acyclovir for shingles treatment. I've also taken some swabs, including the swabs for bacteria and virus. Then I said to the patient that they can go home because they looked well, systemically stable, so they don't really need to stay in the hospital to wait for the swab results to come back. So that was the referral that I saw, and I hope I get the diagnosis right. Sometimes it can be quite challenging to find the right diagnosis, but I think common things are common, and you just have to manage what is the most immediate concern. I'm in my car right now, and I think I am going to head home.
So, guess what? I've just been called the second time in a row, and it is about another patient in the same hospital. So I'll need to drive there again. I mean, technically, sometimes when you get referrals, you don't really need to see all patients. You can get photographs if need be, but it's always nice to see them in person because sometimes descriptions might not be as accurate, and sometimes if patients themselves can't send photos or can't take photos themselves, then it might be a bit tricky if you get the doctors to take it just because of patient confidentiality problems. So now I'm going back to the hospital again to see this patient. The referrer was saying that she had a widespread, really bad looking rash. Not very sure what it could be this time, but I think she was treated for severe infection called cellulitis with antibiotics. But because the rash was still quite persistent and actually has now spread beyond the line of demarcation, the team was wondering if there was something else that is driving this. And interestingly, same as the previous patient, she doesn't have any dermatological issue of note and actually hasn't been on any regular medication. In fact, she's quite young, in her 20s. Not entirely sure what's going on there. So I think just because of how extensive the rash is and the fact that there were some blisters, I think I should go and see her rather than wait till Monday.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind.
So I'm now back. It is officially 8:51 at night, and I just came back and I put the food in the oven whilst I'm talking to you, trying to digest what had just happened. I actually had no idea what was going on with the patient, and it's actually quite an interesting looking rash. The team actually treated the patient with antibiotics for suspected cellulitis. They wanted me to have a look at the patient because the rash was spreading despite a day's course of antibiotics. I just couldn't fit the clinical presentation with a specific diagnosis. And so I had to call my consultant over the phone, and she gave really good advice. Our main treatment would be antibiotics. I've added on a combination steroid and antibiotic ointment called Betnovate C to help with the itchy inflamed skin. So now I'm going to draft an email as a handover for the patients that I've seen to the primary dermatology team working in the hospital for next week, and to encourage myself to write the email, which is going to take a bit of time. I've got myself a cup of cold iron brew, which is very nice.
Walking to the market, strolling hand in hand, exchanging letters when you're away.
Hi guys, so now it is Sunday at 10:34 just now, and I have gotten myself ready in my scrubs. I know it's not the most fancy outfit, but I've gotten 2 calls actually from the same hospital as yesterday, one of which I will need to go and see right now, so that's why I'm all dressed up. I had my coffee, did some revision, some flashcards because of my exams, and I'm ready to go. Just wanted to let you guys know about one of the patients that I'm going to see. So this patient was referred as someone who had this florid widespread eruption affecting both his arms, forearms and backs of his hands in a very symmetrical distribution. So and then he had some sort of red patches on the back as well. So he was actually admitted because of an episode of hypoglycemia, quite a severe one, to the point that he lost consciousness and collapsed. And so they are at the moment monitoring his blood sugar levels and giving him glucose when he needs it. But whilst he was in the hospital, they found this rash, so they wanted me to have a look. With any rash that is quite well demarcated in a sort of symmetrical bilateral distribution, infection is probably lower down in the differential. It's more likely some kind of inflammatory process, I think. I might be completely wrong, but I think it's some kind of inflammatory process, and something that is quite well demarcated make me think about contact allergy as a differential. So we shall see how it goes. The next patient that was referred to me, the doctor was really just asking me for some advice and wanted to make sure that I'm okay with the blood test results. Essentially, I think the patient was being worked up for DRESS syndrome, and this is one of the uncommon dermatological emergency that people don't quite know of. It's called DRESS stands for drug reactive. Sorry, I just had to look up what DRESS actually stand for. So DRESS stands for drug reactions with eosinophilia and systemic symptoms. And the doctor was wanting me to, I guess, look at the blood test results. The patient had some eosinophilia and he wanted to make sure he's not missing anything else. So that's the story. I am now going to the hospital now in my scrubs, and wish me luck. Now I'm back. I've also just cooked and changed, as you can see, with this dish towel on my shoulder, because I was so hungry, so I really needed to get some fuel in. It's officially 1:15 in the afternoon, so I spent half an hour driving there, saw the patient for about 20 minutes, made a plan, told the doctors and the nurses, so that took time, and then came back. And now I am just ready to relax a bit before I get called again. The patient that I saw had quite an interesting rash. It was well demarcated dermatitic on his upper limbs. So my differentials were whether this was a contact dermatitis. The other thing was that he looked quite malnourished. The reason why he came to the hospital was because his blood sugars had fallen and he collapsed as a result. And so I wanted to do some nutritional screen. So one of the things that I think about if patient looks a bit malnourished is zinc deficiency, or acquired zinc deficiency in his case. But he doesn't have the classic features of acrodermatitis enteropathica, which would include dermatitis around the periorificial areas, so the mouth, the genitals. He also didn't have ongoing diarrhea, so I treated him with some topical steroid and antibiotic combination, Betnovate C, and then we'll see how it goes. So it's quite interesting. And I've made just a concoction of like food that I've got in the kitchen because I didn't really have time to go to the supermarket today, so I just cook with whatever I've got. So I've got leftover rice, which I made yesterday. I've got eggs, and I've got mackerel, that I bought last week. So then I decided to make, I guess, fried rice. You can see this is just a mixture of everything. So I know it doesn't look very appetizing, but let me tell you, it is very delicious. Carrots, leftover rice, which is always very good when you want to make fried rice. Tip for anyone thinking of making fried rice: always cook your rice beforehand and leave it to cool before you fry them, just so that the rice will become quite hard and fried. And then we've got mackerel, which is like intermixed in the fried rice. I've used some onions and garlic, and then the black stuff is the soya sauce. So I've got the dark and light soya sauce. So now I'm going to enjoy my lunch with my fried rice, and I'm going to do more revision, do more work. I'm going to look at what I've got at the moment and just try to plow through some of the questions that I wanted to do before the weekend is over. So yeah. Right guys, so it's 9 o'clock. I just received a referral from an A&P in the GP out of hours. Essentially, she referred a young pediatric patient with a blistering rash. But fortunately, the patient is quite well, and she said she's going to send me some photographs, which I will have a look and decide what to put on the skin. I was actually just doing a revision session with my friend Louise when the call came through nearing the end of the discussion, so we had to cut the conversation short. Right, so I just had a chat with my consultant about the young patient. She also didn't quite know what the diagnosis was. Some of the lesions just looked a bit odd. We did wonder about self-inflicted injuries like dermatitis artifacta. I think it is quite a serious diagnosis to make, and so the patient really needs to be seen face-to-face in clinic. So I advised the A&P to let the patient know that we're going to see her in clinic. In the meantime, plain emollients until she gets seen, and also provide some worsening advice. So that was my own call for today. I am now going to shower. It is, I think, 10 o'clock. I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching and subscribing and supporting my channel. I can't tell you how much it means to me to have you guys watching the videos that I make in my spare time, and it really pushes me to make similar content. I hope that my channel will inspire those people who want to do dermatology to chase your dreams and apply for dermatology, even though it's quite a competitive specialty. And see you next time. Bye bye.